Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dice Cult for episode 178 of On the Backs of Gods. I am your DM, Jillian, and we have all our players here today. Same as always, we have Kyle, Matt, Katie, Josh, and Greg. Uh, Honestly, I think we can just jump into things. I'm here to have a good time because it was just my birthday, and I'm allowed to have a good time when it's kind of my birthday. And what
It's
a
kind of
birthday
a
gift
birthday.
for me.
And I'll make the party cry if I want to.
It's if it's my party.
Mm,
I'm gonna TPK this.
perfect. That's exactly what we all
Anywho,
deserve.
that's what all of you asked for me, and you're like, "Hey,
Yeah,
Jillian, that's what we want from this game
that
is a
all of
TPK."
us. That
Um,
100%. It's
all
the
of you
only
sent me a
viable
message.
option.
Happy birthday! Also, if you could TPK the group, I'd
All of
appreciate it.
us just gone.
Yeah, we've
And
only been playing for 4 years with these same
yeah,
characters, so let's get rid of them.
it'll be fine. Um, let
In the
me see.
trash.
Okay. If you do not have an inspiration point, because it is my birthday, you can have one. Happy birthday to me.
Thank you,
So if you do
Jillian.
not have one, you can have it. If you have more than one or one, Gregory, you don't get any more.
I
feel like
used
Greg
mine.
has. I feel like you have another one. I feel like I keep thinking
Well,
you have a
that's
million.
long lost.
Oh, well, it's God, buddy. Anywho, let me jump into it. Recap. You guys are in the horrible, terrible woods. You guys came here with a few missions in mind. The main one, depending on who you are, being that Nyx is actively dying because of a curse that is slowly consuming her body. You can look to screen and confirm some of that if you need to. This ice is slowly turning her into a statue and is on the verge of acquiring that goal. We're close. Nyx looks bad. At the top of the session, the OG team of Nana, Fen, and Roshan ended up in combat after Nana was stung by Water Crimson, a poisonous plant composed of magic, and began to scream, which attracted many a blind creature that had been pursuing you, and kind of gave them like a now's our chance kind of thing. They came in, and as you all were fighting, and it was looking rough, gang. Things were looking bad as a lot of resources had already been used. Some people, based on choices earlier, had no magic to speak of, and currently cannot have any magic to speak of. Some damage, some levels of exhaustion. And the writing was kind of on the wall, and Nyx, who stepped through a tree provided by some entity towards the forest, Nyx had the choice to either go to where Keld was or to go where she heard the chaos of combat happen. And lucky for you, she chose the chaos of battle and brought up downed characters and helped take care of little gremlin monsters that were there to rip you asunder. And eventually you came out victorious, though Nana is incapacitated, and when not incapacitated, is intent on removing her arm, as the pain from the Water Crimson is so terrible that not having the arm is probably better than having it at this point. But Nana is currently unconscious and stabilized, and the party picks her up with no other options or not wanting to try the options because, the options aren't good. uh, but you pick her up and begin to make your way through the forest following Keld. Keld at this time had been presented an effigy of himself. He has to show the forest who he is and why he is worthy enough to be there and speak to the lurk of the brushwood. And Keld adorns the statue with gem eyes and gleaming armor, and his pot that he's been carrying on his back since day one, and ingredients with which to cook with. And what he later finds out to be this emblem he was given, this necklace, a gift from the forest itself, and goes on his way. Knows that during this time that he can hear something behind him I can only assume has a good idea that it might be the party, but pushes on, does not investigate. And eventually, Keld arrives at a house made from a tree, a large, terrible tree with snaking rivers beneath it, and goes inside to begin dealing with the lurk of the brushwood. Uh, Keld, you find this entity to be 3 in 1. One entity being the first you encountered, which is death. One that has not spoken to you and has not moved and has not, by name itself, shown any signs of life. You also encountered life, a version of that same body, but blood pumping, a kindness there. Not a lot, but some. And an interest in talking to you, an interest in you in general, Keld. And then everything in between. A twisted, horrific, giant entity of that same body. So everything between life and death placed upon one entity. You never see them at the same time. Does that mean they are the same thing? Does that mean they just, one hides in a shadow while it's happening? Keld, at least having watched this, you are under the assumption that this is probably one entity. That's your guess currently. Is that this is one thing personified in many ways. And after being bullied by everything in between, Keld is forced to give a deal or open the door as his friends have arrived. And Keld decides to try and lay forth a deal to appeal to life, saying that she could come to his community, that once a month she could dance and celebrate, and everything and death seemed excluded from that deal, that it was not working for them entirely, and then insisted you open the door. And thus you did. Keld, you go over and open the door, and you start to take in that all of your companions are there, and then they mean nothing to you immediately as Nick stands in front of you, and the ice has spread to most of her body. Nick's, as you look at Keld, his eyes are fogged over and glazed the same way Russ's were. What are we doing?
I think she immediately just goes forward and hugs him the way that she can.
Mm.
You have a usable arm, kind
One
of.
arm, the one arm hug,
Yeah.
Keld will return. Hug the Frosty.
Roshan would politely ask, standing outside the door, and say, "May we come in and deal with the lady of this cottage?"
Keld, you are currently standing in the doorway. Keld, you can hear like shuffling behind you, the sound of movement. You don't hear anybody say, no, close the door, but you do hear like movement behind you, but no protests.
I think he'll step back out of the doorway, but into the house.
Okay. All of you go in? Okay. You step into this house of new leaf and rot and interest and hobby grown dusty and rusted. And there is a woman, a nude feminine entity, walking through the house, stopping at a table and like looks like she's like gently swatting dust from the tabletops and on top of some of it looks like farming equipment, like little gardening tools that she is like gently brushing dust off of. She currently does not acknowledge anybody who has entered and is focused on the clutter on the table and currently is paying you no mind. But it's like it does not look like an effective cleaning that's happening. She just stands there gently dusting things off and examining them.
I think Roshan would look to Keld to see if he needs to do the talking or what's going on with Keld.
Good question. um I think Keld will sort of gesture towards her. I haven't found a deal to appease her yet. I need help.
Roshan will turn back and I mean, he looks like garbage, but this whole cottage kind of looks like garbage, so maybe he fits in.
Don't tell her
He
that.
will he will bow, unsure if she's watching him, and say, "My name is Roshan. These are my companions, Fen, Nyx, and Nana, and Keld, who I assume you already know. May we make your acquaintance? Is there a name we can call you?"
And she stops. And her head pans forward. And these horrible, round, bright eyes are now upon the group. And there is a sensation in your stomach that you wish you had not drawn her attention towards you, that you wish you had just let her continue, but that's not why you're here. She taps her fingers through the dust. This is one of the largest groups to stumble in. And she smiles, and her teeth are white and sharp. I'm everything. I am life. I am the crawl towards death. I am the trees and the shadows they make. And sometimes I like to collect, and sometimes I like to chase. They refer to me as the lurk of the brushwood. And you may refer to me as such, but let be known, I am the brushwood. I am every inch of it. Please, come in. And the door slams shut behind you.
I don't think at this point Roshan can not jump at the sound. Spooky as hell in here.
Mm-hmm.
We were hoping you could cure our friend of her curse.
And her eyes turn to Nyx. And she smiles. Well, that happened quick, didn't it? I didn't expect so soon. And then it's like kind of like her focus leaves it.
Mhm.
You don't like it?
Not particularly.
Huh. It'd be weird if you did. But I thought I should ask. I don't want them to take something from you that you like. Kel, you see that compared to your conversation, life seems to be the only one participating. That death and everything in between do not join in during this. You're not exactly sure why, but it is only life. Well, there's not much you could give me. And she has her eyes back on Nyx.
Right. Just kind of looks for the bag to get this jar out.
Yeah, you see kind of like you can find the bag pretty easily.
I did bring this as a gift or to help make a deal for you.
Huh. What is it?
Some kind of relic that we were given for
Oh.
this.
Keld,
Mm.
would you bring it to me, please?
He'll grab the jar and bring it over.
Thank you. And she takes it and she smashes it upon the table. And in the midst of this horrific goo, if you've ever seen gefilte fish, it's kind of the vibe. Shout out to everybody who knows what gefilte fish is and has seen it and is grossed out. But instead of a beautiful mush of fish, you are looking at something fetal. Some sort of creature in a fetal position, covered in goo and this liquid just spilling over the sides of the table. And she looks at it. Oh. I like it. This is a nice gift.
You recognize it?
Well, she kind of like touches it. And you realize in this moment of this loud breaking sound, Nana is startled awake, who has been sleeping in this moment. And there is no rest for the wicked. It is immediately into screams. Her mouth is bound, but that does not stifle the screams of a person in horrific pain, just muffles it a little bit. And the lurk like goes to speak and then like stops and like winces a bit. Well, that's a bit annoying, isn't it? Why won't she stop?
She's in great pain.
You can see kind of a going back and forth. I would like that to stop for a time. Keld, she steps away from the table and crosses that pillar, and all of you see a giant shadow of that same body arched and twisted as it makes its way to the back of the room and snatches a jar off of a shelf and makes her way back across and is once again that same young feminine form. And as she walks by, taps her finger on another jar, kind of a lighthearted knock, and sets the other jar on the table in this goo and pops it open and pulls out what looks like a firefly. And she sticks out her tongue and presses it against it and smears the bug against her tongue. And from a pile of knickknacks, she pulls forth some twine and places it into her mouth and then pulls it out, and it glows with this kind of sickly green energy. And she begins to make her way over to Nana. Does anybody interfere?
I mean, is Nana still on Fenn's shoulders, or has he set her down
I
to
mean,
writhe on her own feet?
I feel like there's no way that Fen could hold on to her while she is in this state. Fen would have to be like, okay.
Okay.
All
So
right.
that'd probably like have set her down and like help scooch her back up against like a wall or something so she can sit and writhe, and Fen would probably stand beside her, but not necessarily interfere with the hag.
Okay.
The lurk.
Sorry, ma'am.
Sorry, Miss
She
Brushwood.
I'm sorry. She makes her way over, kind of twisting this twine between her fingers, and snatches Nana's arm and like yanks it upwards and ties this twine around the arm, separating it from the rest of the body where the injury is. And there is a flash of light, and then you watch as light goes out and then in and kind of sinks into the arm and then begins to glow in about like an inch ring around where the twine is placed. And her arm now hovers about an inch from her body, no longer connected, just gently hovering, still controllable, but no longer touching the rest of her body. It is a strange sensation, Nana, but the pain is definitely not what it was. It is now you just have a spectrally attached arm, is how it kind of looks at the moment. There. It'll fade eventually, don't worry. And
It'll help.
she makes her way back to the table.
Fen would
Mhm.
help unbind Anna's handkerchief, ungag her.
It's better. Relatively.
Say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You can save your thanks. For now. And she makes her way back over to the table and she like snatches this fetal entity off of it and kind of looks at the shattered remnants of the jars. And then makes her way over to the back of the room and starts looking for a new jar to place this in, kind of leaving you guys at the front, but is now looking for a place to store this.
I think Nana is kind of just trying to get her bearings. I know that she is currently startleable and has the stealing thing, but also she's kind of dealing with the whole spectrally attached arm thing and having no idea what happened between getting stung and now. Not a clue, so she's playing catch up, visibly.
I think Keld's probably muttering to himself. There has to be
That's normal.
something worth Nyx's life. There has to be something I can give, just sort of musing.
Oh. I'm sure. And she smiles and turns back around. This fetal entity has just been shoved into a jar. And she kind of wipes her hand across that other jar that she tapped on and just like smears this like kind of congealed thin blood across it. If you want, if you are already tiring of my company, we can get to it. If there is no pleasantries for me.
We appreciate
I
you allowing us to come.
apologize. I apologize that our requests may be rude at this time. What is customary in the brushwood for guests? I feel like that's going to be regrettable.
Is that what you'd like? Customary. I know you. Brash thing. We spoke for a moment. And you have a familiar reek of God corpse on you. Interesting. Keld. Look at you. Friends to play with in the woods. What is customary is for your bones to dry in the sun, and for your armor to swing from the branches, and for me to dance upon your sinew. But you offered me deals, and I know you. And it is, and I am seeing you again. And that's special. So we're doing something new. Now, Keld. And I am sorry. I do not know your name. We did not get to be introduced with it.
Is this a different manifestation?
No, the manifestation has not changed, but has focused in on Nyx.
Okay. Roshan did say everyone's names when they walked in.
She doesn't give a shit.
Great.
I'm Nyx.
And that is the name they gave you.
That's the only name I remember having, so yeah.
Oh. Hmm. Nice to see you again, Nyx. Hmm. Everyone seems a bit nervous. Everyone's a bit tight-lipped.
So you know who did this to her?
Oh. Yes. I did.
Was it asked of you?
She smiles. You're so smart, Keld. Yes. This was part of a deal. You just have to ask. Because I know you want to.
And what was the other half of the deal?
Well, there was a woman, and she came to see me. And the sounds she made. Familiar. Yet more visceral than normal. So it was interesting. It was memorable. And usually, people come to me to save their children. And she looks to Keld. And I think people only come to me to save their children if they are afraid of heights. And she like chuckles to herself, and like that laughter sort of like rumbles the interior of the home. I do not remember the bargain itself. The bargains are all very similar. But it was worth the trade to this woman of her child. The magic between mother and child is something special. And then you belonged to me. And I wasn't sure what to do with that. Part of me wanted to keep you. And then I thought how silly that was. As the other part of me wanted to eat you. And that's also quite silly. And I do not wish to be at odds with myself in this way. So we compromised. I set you out with people that I knew would not give you away. But that doesn't appease everything. And that does not appease death. So you were cursed. As is only fair. That death could one day have you. And everything was appeased, as you would suffer in that time. And I was appeased. Because I knew he'd come back. And his eyes focus on Keld. I knew this was the only way you'd come back. And I was right. But we can't change that. Now can we? And she straightens up. I was promised trades and deals and bargains. And I hear the occasional plea. You may try to appeal to my humanity. And you may offer sweet things. And she looks to Keld. Or you will beg for compassion. And you will find that I have none to give. My offers, my regards, are that of the forest. If you would give the forest your tears, it would give you nothing in return. And she begins to make her way around the room. Though, and she crosses the pillar and you feel yourself blink And this large entity now looms and moves through the space, white eyes turning and look at you. There was this handsome thing offering quite the deals. Quite the interesting, exquisite deals. Now, can you compare? Because that has set my standards quite high. Or maybe you will remain silent. And don't worry. Every single deal stays between us. And she grabs the pillar in the center of the room, and everything begins to shake and twist. The room splits like a prism, like a mirror shattering. Each of you shifted into a different field of color. It's like being in your own beautiful pocket of the brushwood. You can catch broken images of your companions around you as you sit in your own space, but you cannot hear nor reach any of them. Your minds are laid bare as you are under the influence of the brushwood. And you know you have to give your deals. I would love everybody to send me your deals. And that is where we are going to take our break. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. We're going to take a little bit of an early 10-minute break. So go get a snack and a drink. We'll get back to these deals and we will see you all in 10 minutes.
10.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dice Cult for episode 178 on the Backs of Gods. We just took our 10-minute break, and the party is now split in a broken prism, each a little space for themselves and themselves alone, so that they may have a one-on-one with the lurk of the brushwood. We are going to start with Nana. If everybody else could make it so that they cannot hear the conversation, I would appreciate it. Okay. Nana. You stand in this piece of prism, this orange tinted forest. And you can see like bits and pieces of your friends around you as if a shattered piece of glass. And you can see that they are around you, and you can see their mouths moving, looking around, moving around, but there's nothing that you can hear of them. And that woman, that feminine entity, stands before you in this space. She is there in this form, and yet is also expansive, and is just a looming set of eyes on the horizon that you occasionally catch a glance of, and you have to almost try and focus back on the physical form, as the other one is too much to behold. I see. Pain. The human experience. And yet, you have had your fair share. And death. You have also had your fair share.
It's a little more for a friend.
Well, whose death do I pick at random?
I would offer my life in exchange for hers. We are both of us daughters of chiefs, and we're friends. And I would do that for her. And I would do it without complaint. The only thing I would ask is that I am able to complete the task of felling Bosch. That will satisfy my one largest requirement. After that, I can return the thing that I borrowed from another temple here in the brushwood and return to you, as promised.
One life for another. Quite straightforward. It is quite the straightforward deal. But then we lose the pain of it, don't we?
You can prolong it, if you like.
Well, I'm already getting that, aren't I? So, why would your pain be more interesting to me?
Because I have got so very many other promises that perhaps I wouldn't be able to keep. And I don't know to what matter what beats inside my breast to you, but that is a pain I would struggle to endure.
And yet, then you wouldn't have to feel it ever again. Now, Here's my question. People who are willing to give their lives, they are an interesting breed, and I don't want to call you a selfish little thing. But what's the thing you really don't want to give me? What's something that'll hurt you to give me? Because when you finally meet the mud, you will not know pain and you will not know suffering. There is something when people pick death that they are avoiding or that they are afraid of or that they would never want to twist their little fingers away from. What is that? What will you not give me?
My home, my family, my memory of them. They give me strength every day, and I treat them like I don't even know them already. And perhaps if I can give to you what is dearest to me, the family I knew, the people I served, if I could not see them again,
Now,
my heart might break every day.
that is a beautiful deal. And to take one's memories is a blessing. So believe you me, you may keep those. But for pain, for life and death and everything in between, you offer me that if this curse were to be lifted, you could never return home. And you could never see any of them again. Is that the deal you are proposing?
If that will absolve Nyx's curse, then yes. If that is sufficient.
Now, may I present something to you? There are many bodies here to offer deal. And if we were to save Nyx with your deal, who is to say she would not be felled later by your incompetence? And what a terrible deal that would be. You could make the bargain. The hope that someone else in this group cares as deeply as you do, that they will break this curse. But you could deal to make sure that she not fall in battle, that you not be the reason she fall in battle. You could find strength. And you could have that, and you could keep her safe. The future of Nyx, not the now. Is that something that appeals to you?
It does? Yeah.
So, our deal is that you will never return home, and you will be strong enough to protect her. Is that what we're proposing?
Yes. Yes, it is.
I see. Okay. I am now to Fen. Hi, everybody. Nana, if you'll mute yourself so you can't hear nothing. Fen, if you would come join us. Hello.
All right, I think I can hear now. Maybe.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right.
Cool. Fen, you stand in a broken part of this prism in a green forest. And you look out onto the horizon and see these large, looming, round, white eyes that you cannot stare directly at them, as if your brain cannot process the magnitude of what you are looking at, but you can see the form that you had been speaking with earlier of the lurk that stands before you. A blank slate. You bring me nothing.
I want only to help my friends, and by doing so, that has led me to intrude on your land into your home, and for that I apologize. I do not come looking to make any deals for myself, for I want for nothing, and it is only a set of 3 deals made on account of somebody else that leads us to intrude in the first place. I don't feel capable or worthy of making a deal on behalf of any of these, and I'll let them do their own business with you.
I see. So is there nothing for us to discuss?
Again, I apologize for the intrusion, but I'm happy to wait and see my friends out once they've concluded their business.
Understood. I can see that the universe, on many an occasion, has gifted you insight, whether you saw it as such or not. And I was of the mind that you can't teach a dead dog new tricks. And so, you live to keep learning. You will see your friends out of here.
I did have but one question, and this is not a proposal of any means. You said that you are the brushwood, you're everything here. What of the corruption that lurks within the brushwood? Is that you as well?
Well, I am everything, aren't I? And she is a twisted thing, isn't she? The way she looks. We are the forest and the corruption. We are everything in between.
I have just seen creatures of yours stamp out creatures of corruption, and wondered if it was an interloper in itself.
They do me no harm, but they do me no good. And I was more interested in the living things.
Understood. Thank you for your hospitality.
Of course. And she smiles, and we're going to switch over to Roshan. If you'd be so kind as to join me, Fen, as long as you can't hear me, we are good. Gregory pretending he can't hear me in the other room.
I'm here.
Roshan, you stand in a piece of this prism in a purple forest. A figure looms in front of you. It is the woman you were speaking to earlier, but behind her there is a large, looming set of white eyes on the horizon, immeasurably large, and you find yourself unable to keep focus at them. And you have to focus in on the body in front of you. She must be quite special for you to make such a deal.
I assume you speak of my sister.
Of course.
She is. We shared a womb and then a room for the better part of our life.
So, you make a deal for her.
I offer everything I have of the one that I love in exchange for everything you have of one that I love.
Tempting, I will say. It is tempting. Though, I do find that dealing with the take of memories to ruin things for everything. Because it ends suffering, doesn't it? If you can't remember.
Do you propose something in its stead?
Well, sometimes I'm a bit of a sucker for love. That party. What a pretty thing that was. But I'm not sure a deal where I cannot see the repercussions appeals to me. And one where you forget and you cannot feel. There has to be something more that you do not want to give. Or is that the peak? Love for love. What about you? What can I take that's really yours?
I would say, to me, those memories are the peak of what I can offer you, and the holes that they leave behind will the holes that they leave behind leave me with little happy memories.
And what if I took your use?
My use?
What if you were destined to fail? That you were given this success on a quest that you have been on for quite some time. And maybe you are destined to fail somewhere else in its stead. A success for a failure. and you will remember every second of it.
So, in exchange for my sister, you would like a future failure on my part.
Yes, I think that makes sense to me. But this is quite the big thing, isn't it? 3 failures for one very important success. And don't worry, you don't have to choose. The universe will.
And that is all you ask.
That is all I ask of you. Is 3 times that you will fail.
If you'll not have my deal, then I will have yours.
I appreciate it. Everything of the one you love. A successful mission for 3 failures in the future. Is that the deal?
Can you restate that one more time? I just want to make sure I got it.
I should. Hey, if you could be sure. Everything of your sisters, the one you love, return to you. A success in exchange for 3 failures in the future.
Deal.
Okay. And we shift over to Keld. Thank you, Roshan. You can get muted. You should be able to hear me. He's just over there. Keld.
Just making sure.
He can hear me. Keld. You stand in this broken prism in a field of light blue, a forest made bright, and on the horizon, large white eyes looming. And you can stare at them, and you look into them, and you stare at the horizon. A sunrise and a sunset, a dawn and a dusk. And a voice speaks out over the space. Do you think any of them traded for her life?
I like to think so.
Keld. You mean sometimes I don't understand exactly. But that does not change my nature. What is your deal?
Well, for Nyx's life, to have this curse removed from her I'll give you my last breath. I don't know when it will be, of course. But it will be yours to use as you wish.
I will cherish it. Your last breath. And everything that tumbles after. I do not regret what I have done to see you here. And yet I wish to mourn. For the removal of this curse. For your sister's life. I will take your last breath. If you are willing to give compensation up front. I will still take your last breath. But I need collateral. Are you willing to let me take this collateral?
If that's what you need.
Good. Good. And you see a shadow move over the forest. A large entity makes its way away. Everybody. Everyone come back. Everyone join me. Everyone. Everyone
go.
come back. Everybody come back. Everybody. Chop chop. Everybody come back. Come here. Everybody come here. Nana.
Nana.
Everyone. She refuses.
Dance.
Everyone dance. Dance.
Nana, please.
Dance. 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 Why? She cares not.
She looked.
She cares
I saw
not
her.
for me. Hey, focus up. Hi, welcome back. So you are each in your individual piece of this prism. Nyx, you are not. You stand currently alone in this house, staring up at the broken images above you, these colors, your friends. And you can hear every single thing they are saying. Every single word comes crystal clear to you. And you watch as the lurk moves around the room in front of you. And a chair moves out and scrapes across the floor for you to sit. And you are able to listen in on everyone's deals. You know what people were willing to give and what they were not willing to give. And she moves about the space. And unlike when you first entered, she is watching you. She seems more receptive and stops occasionally. She does not start any conversation, but she is intent on you as this takes place.
She definitely sits down. And as she's listening to the separate conversations, the lurk is looking, would see just heartbreak from a couple of the conversations that were had.
Mm-hmm.
A different kind from Keld than the others, and like sad that he said what he did.
Mm.
But does not know how to respond to some of them.
Hmm. Are you shocked? Is this shocking news? She seems genuinely curious. This does not seem like a jab.
Yeah. I really thought that more of them would care,
Hmm.
even something small.
There aren't many people, when push comes to shove, who are willing to rip out their own nerves for those they care for. And I'm a bit upset he is not here for me.
Thank you for letting me watch.
Of course. I said the deals stay between us, didn't I? Would you like me to comfort you?
In what way?
Well, it is not my area of expertise. I tried when you were first here. So, not knowing what to do, I mimicked her. And her jaw falls slack. And a horrible weep spills from her mouth as she begins to cry. She made these sounds, and I thought they would comfort. Did they?
Or at least familiar.
Hmm.
Just comforting in a way.
Now, you have never made a deal with me. That was someone else's deal gone awry. This, another person's deal. Do you have any deals you wish to make now that there's a life ahead of you? And you know how you are truly seen.
I don't know what I would ask for. Other than this being cured.
Mm-hmm. And you will be. And then what? And then what? They trek through my woods, and they whisper the sweet nothings of safety and saviorhood in your ear, and they present themselves to me prostrate and... Is it a trickery to you? Is it a falsehood? Is the intention to hurt and to lie? And I ask these things honestly, as I do not ponder into the thoughts of men often. Gosh, but is it for the shock of it? Do people want to watch it happen?
Maybe.
You know. I could kill her now. Make a deal. And I present a corpse.
He might not keep his promises, but I made a promise to keep her safe.
I don't understand. And she starts to make her way around the room, and you watch as the body arches and twists as she begins to move through the space.
I think she's just still staring at the ceiling. Now going between Fen and Roshan.
Mm-hmm.
What is this?
Uh-huh. You watch this figure taking up the extent of the room in the back and moving about. I am an entity who keeps their promises. I cannot control if people keep theirs, unless so magically bound. So, I will give them their gifts. And you can look them in the eyes, and you may feel your feelings, your hurt. And it almost feels as if you made a deal with me already. What a gift to be given.
Is Russ going to be let go from his connection?
No. He's quite the specimen. Those deals. No. Of course, my influence was there. That's all him. And how astounding. He is currently outside of the bounds of my influence. It will inevitably fade.
Okay.
I cannot promise he will be exactly as he was. But my influence will go. But there is a piece of him that is changed, and how interesting that was to watch. If nothing, you all have given quite the show. Quite the thing to watch. Worth not stringing your armor and bones in the branches.
And I make a deal for you to send us back out safely. Like how you brought me here.
I could send you. And she points at Fen. Points at Roshan. Her hand sort of points vaguely in a direction in the house. And then points to Nana. Points to you. And puts her hand back down.
So she avoided killed.
Yes.
What about Keld?
Oh, he is mine. He was given to me.
What if he could come back after we go out and do what we need to. I can make a deal for that. For him to leave for now, at least.
Now that's quite the thing to make a deal of someone else's will. I'm not sure you can do that. But you could make a deal to have that time. He knows he is bound. He can't leave. And if I let him leave, then just snarl as the entity walks by and pushes past the pillar and closes range with you and is back to that more slender feminine form. He was traded to me, fair and square. If you are fixed, he will never come back. Well, at least until his last breath, I suppose. And if that is the case, I could take it now. I could do that.
I don't see why we wouldn't come visit. I could help him come see you whenever.
And how do I know you are not a liar?
We make a deal for that. And if I don't keep my promise, the curse comes back.
Interesting.
You wouldn't want that.
I will say, these magics are picky little things. If you get that curse back, I lose that last breath. It's in the wording. Though, you can make a deal for yourself. How can you get him to come back? Once you have done your hero work. And I don't want to take life from him. I want to see him as the Grand Pot. I want him to return to me on the day of his blessing, the day he takes the title. And maybe I just trust you. I trust that two of you will return. Am I foolish?
I don't think so. If we'd known we've lived here, if we'd known, we would have been here sooner.
You've traveled quite far, the two of you. Are you ready? And she looks up at the prism. Good. And she straightens up. And the colors smash back together. All of you feel almost like you are at a slight impact as you are pushed back into this space and brought back to where you had originally been standing. All of you now returning to the hag's house. Nana, Roshan, and Keld, knowing that your deals have been accepted. Well, I suppose our business is concluded. Huh. Take your time. I have to prepare something. And she straightens up and goes over and begins to like start pushing through things on the shelves and moving things around and gathering things. She's focused on that. All of you stand in this space together. I can't hear you, Nana.
Nana wants to move over to Nyx. If Nyx recoils, she'll stop, but
She'll give you a hug immediately.
I mean, yeah.
Roshan will look around the room and see if he can spot a sister.
Roll perception.
15? 15.
You don't see another like person in here besides all of you and the lurk.
Then he will politely ask, Miss Lurk of the Brushwood, where's my sister?
Arm full of things grips the shelf. Do you not take me as honest?
It was not a question of your honesty, but I know our deal.
Then you know our
Is-
deal. And she continues with what she was doing.
That shuts him up.
Yeah. Anything while all of you are waiting, the hag is just like, I'm now doing something. And you saw how quickly Roshan was shut down for questions. So she seems busy.
I think Kelda's probably
Can't hear you, Nana. Mm-hmm, Keld.
Keld's probably looking at Nyx and then watching the lurk and just waiting.
Yeah, Nyx is still currently covered in ice. That has not changed. But is just watching and waiting.
Did it work? Did she agree? Oh.
Yeah. Thank you, Nana. Thank you, Keld.
He'll hug Nyx.
How
You
much
know.
did you hear?
Just another little squeeze. You didn't have to offer all of that. Well, thank you.
I'd do it again. I'm sorry. I should have said it sooner. I'm sorry.
Very pointedly not looking at the other two.
I think Roshan is just watching what Hag is doing.
Mm-hmm. Keld, you might be a bit under the influence of the forest. But you know Nyx. I think you can. Maybe you don't know the what, when, where, why. But there's pointed interaction. And there are pointed glances. I think you can pick up at least a little bit of maybe what happened here. And Roshan made his abundantly clear.
think he'll look to Finn. Are you all right?
I was told that I'd see everyone safely out of here. So if I'm to trust her, we'll all be safe on the outside of the brushwood.
Nix, however Fen may feel about it, as somebody who watched with the hag, he's not saying anything possibly incorrect. But you know that no deal was made for that.
That was just a given.
She's like, yeah, sure, man. Yeah, walk out of here. She's like, yeah, do it. Still coming around and like hitting things down onto the table and pushing jars and different things into place as she moves around the space.
I'm assuming Nana is still inflicted with the startle.
Oh yeah, you're probably a little
Yeah.
jumpy about
Yeah,
it.
she'd just
Every
flinch
jar.
into Nyx. Every single one. Sorry.
Hey, Keld.
Mm.
With this new knowledge, give me a wisdom saving throw. And actually, give me two. One at a time.
One is a
So the first one.
20. My brain. Okay.
Well, that's okay. 20 something. And the next one?
Yes. Is a 13.
Okay. Russ went into the wood, screaming and begging for death. The amount of promises that were flung around in this party. How many of them were kept? And how many of them were kept by you? She hugs Nana. Nana did something. Nana did something. You know you did something. And the first thing Roshan asks is about his sister. And there's an understanding there. It's what you would do. And there is just something inside of you ripping you apart. Because you understand. You understand intimately. He was going to let her die. This burden was always yours. What does Kel do with that if the forest takes a moment of influence? Is there a thought, a feeling, or an action that you think would be at the forefront?
Can't think of a physical reaction. There's definitely like a just like a pang of, because that's hurtful, but then at the same time, it's Keld never wanted to put this responsibility on anyone else. That was not his intention.
Kel, do you find yourself gripping your sword? And you remember your burden. Why would you think anybody else should have it? And you let it go. there are many loose ends to bind. Let's start with you. And she turns her focus to Nana. You wish to be a protector, and you will wander as one with me. And she makes her way a bit further into the home, kind of ushering you forward.
Nana will follow.
She brings
Gives
you
Nyx a
over.
squeeze in parting real quick.
Yeah.
And goes,
She brings you over to a circular table with runes carved into it. And you can see that it looks like there's shattered bone and crystal, and you're pretty sure teeth just ground up around it. And you can feel almost like a stomach churning energy from it as you approach. And she makes her way past you in this feminine form. And she looks at you and she raises a finger, like, stay, don't speak. And she goes and she twists the top off of a lid and pulls a cork off of another and dips her fingers into each, one after the other. The mineral smells, the smell of copper, the smell of waking up after a nightmare, the mixture of feeling and scent as she outlines each rune along the outside of this flat table. She then reaches between her legs and pulls up her fingers red and draws a rune in the center, drawing it out. And she looks to you, grabs you by the wrist of the arm that is still attached to your body, and forces it down onto the table. There is no pain. But something changes as you can feel vibrations under your hand. It's almost as if the wood begins to splinter under your fingers, but does not pierce, does not hurt. It is just the sensation of becoming one with this wood, with this ritual. And then she releases your wrist. You will have to tell me if we are to meet again. And maybe we shouldn't. But you will have to tell me if it was worth it. And she smiles and begins to make her way back over to readying a different spell. And you are kind of now able to return to the group.
she goes.
And she looks over at Nyx. It would be a bit anticlimactic, wouldn't it? I wish there was a big show. And you watch as she holds her hand, fingers like dials on a clock, tilts them forwards, clockwise. And you feel the ice begin to shift further across your face. Begins to slowly take over parts of your body, and then her hand stops. And there is a low chuckle as she pulls her hand back, and you watch as her arm twists and bends around as the ice slowly creeps its way back to its originating point on the back of your shoulder until it is completely gone. And you can move every inch of your body. Your fingers have sensation. No wound is left. It's as if it was never there.
Thanks. Yeah, I think Nana wants another hug real quick.
She can get a real hug. And Kel would
Yeah.
too.
Real
Mhm.
hugs. It's been too
Two
long.
arm hugs.
You all hug as the lurk moves back across the room, and his body becomes large and imposing. As she grabs the jar she had been tip-tapping her fingers against and slides it off the shelf and brings it over and sets it on the table. You can see inside past this fogged glass. Almost looks like the home for when you were a child and maybe you caught a caterpillar. There's a stick and a leaf and some dirt and a young woman folded up tight in her cloak, holding close to herself in against the side of the glass, keeping hidden, keeping small. You can see where there looks to be tiny little smatters of blood, where maybe someone had hit their hands against the glass and was unable to free themselves. And now they sit quietly in their jar, and it is set on the table. And the hag looks to the jar and then looks to Roshan.
Shall I let her out, or should we leave with her?
It is a good jar. And just like this horrible giant entity, everything in between begins to just laugh.
I think Roshan doesn't need to be told twice and says, then I shall let you keep it, and will rush over to it and hope I don't need to roll athletics to open jar.
That's so funny. Please roll athletics to open jar.
No, why would you say that?
Please roll athletics to open jar.
Dude, it's
Um,
RP 101.
I did get a 12.
You know, I would almost say that's high enough to open a jar.
To open a jar, you know. I
Thank
mean, maybe
goodness.
it's 6
Depending
of
on the
it.
jar, right? Like depending
Yeah.
on the jar. Some jar higher than 12.
That's
Some jar lower
true.
than 12.
Also true.
You never know what you're going to get when it comes to the jars. You place your hand upon it, and the lurk's hand sits atop yours as you begin to twist and holds you steady. It is that same, like, the air from your lungs sort of sensation, not as visceral, but as when she had grabbed your sending when you were communicating, and she holds your hand for a moment. Allow me.
If she is lightening up on Roshan's hand, then he will pull it away. If not, he'll kind of just let her twist it with the lid.
Allow us, comrade.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
She allows you to pull your hand back. After a moment, maybe a show of force, maybe a not understanding how incredibly powerful she is. And she picks up the jar and looks around the room for a moment and hones in on an empty corner and pulls the top off. And a figure is sort of shunted into the space as if one had magically teleported out of the jar and into the room. And this figure, now kind of thrown from their space, kind of lands sort of fetal in position, cloak pulled tight over them in the corner. And the hag looks to the jar and dumps out the stick and then puts the lid back on and is very content to place her jar back atop the shelf. A shame to lose. God rot.
Roshan will run over to her, trip over his feet, and kind of just like land on top of her
Oh god.
grabbing and crying. And Rose, are you okay?
Rose takes a moment, seems to like stay sort of in this like covered, huddled position for a while, as you know, she's probably been going through it the last few days.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can relate.
Um, Roshan, could you roll intelligence for me? This isn't a saving throw or anything like that.
Check.
Just roll me
Okay.
some intelligence.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh
Well,
no.
I mean, it's a 10.
Mm.
Uh, she kind of very slowly begins moving. So there's motion there. And then quickly a hand kind of comes to your shoulder. And she like grips and like straightens herself up and extends her arm fully so that you are at arm's distance and she can like look at you so that you can be beheld. And she's gonna roll.
He bald.
Is she rolling for vicious mockery?
I bet.
Roshan dies.
Oh no!
Can't
Legitimately
take
at this
vicious
point.
mockery damage.
Fuck,
Yeah.
dude, no. We can't even.
And she looks at you, and you do watch her face twist a bit from fear to I'm not gonna say the word disgust, that's way too far. But it is definitely a face of like a more of a what the fuck sort of face. And she kind of mumbles like what the fuck under her breath. And just kind of looks at you for a moment.
Um, Roshan, I mean, looks like garbage. Him and all three of his HPs.
Mm-hmm.
And says to her, "We must thank our host for her hospitality, and then we must go."
Rose peels her eyes from you, and they land on the hag. And that initial fear sets back in immediately as Rose basically like uses you to push herself up and like away and like hits herself like back into the corner and kind of stands against the wall. At this point you're probably on the wall towards the front door is where she sort of positions herself. Thank you for your thank you for your hospitality, ma'am. Do you have any water? And she looks at Roshan.
Roshan has a water skin. He'll give it to her.
Probably not.
Um, Many thanks for your hospitality, Lurk of the Brushwood.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I think Roshan would just stand holding his sister's hand and uh, waiting for somebody to make a move toward the door or waiting for the hag to let us out. But he's going to just start humming the same song that he uses for counter charm, but the song that his mother used to sing to soothe them in their youth.
Okay. And the hag moves back around the room and is that feminine form and looks at Keld. I could fix that for you. And she glances down at your hand. A gift of the brushwood, if you were so inclined.
I couldn't ask more of you. You've already given me so much.
This would be no deal. This would be a gift. If you want it. Do you want it?
I'll happily accept.
Hmm. The hag looks to you, Nyx. Apologies. Maybe if the other one comes off. And, she looks to you, Keld. You may go to the place of worship that we built together. And you will find your gift. And you may strip your doll, because when you return to me, you will be different. And I want to know who that is. I
Thank you.
hope you do not die in the woods. In your one remaining night with me. But if you do, I will cradle your bones forever.
I don't plan on dying tonight, so
Here's hoping. If you remain within the borders of my home, where the metal and bone chime in the trees, the corruption will not touch you, nor will the things I have borne. But the effect, the love, the disdain that the brushwood provides is unending. I cannot stop that from happening. And if any of you decide to stay, you know where to find me. And you watch as she leans back and dark tears begin to stream down the sides of her cheeks as she laughs and pushes away. And you blink, and sitting in an old rocking chair, her emaciated form sitting still and unblinking as the front door slowly opens. And you were able to leave.
Before we step out, Nana would like to turn to Death and just offer a bow of respect.
Okay.
We haven't been properly face-to-face acquainted yet, so it seems the right moment.
Okay. You show your respect. And Death, as it is, sits, unblinking and wordless. And do you all go?
I think Roshan is holding on to his sister and most interested in Keld. Like, is Keld still got foggy eyes, and is he allowed to leave?
good question.
Keld 100% still has eyes covered in mist and fog. Keld, do you try to leave the house?
I think so. I think he'll try to follow Nyx.
Yeah. You're able to step out of the home.
No.
Then Roshan will get to the door and say, "Thank you one last time for your hospitality." And then we'll step out and politely close the door.
Thank you. And you close the
Thanks,
door
bye.
behind you. Rose, the second the door is closed, kind of pulls her wrist from your arm, like separates herself from you, goes and grabs a stick from off the ground and begins immediately carving runes into different patterns and shapes on the ground with this stick, and like focuses in on that.
Is it obvious what she's doing?
You can roll Arcana.
I'll roll Arcana. Oh. 24.
It takes you a second, as it is drawn in mud, which you know immediately then that this is a thing of desperation, because you're not sure if it'll work. She's attempting to make a teleportation circle on the mud.
It's okay, sister. Where's the strength? Where would you try to take us?
She stops. And she looks at you. And it is a mix of emotions. There is a hint of love there. You don't know if you're making it up, but you see it, that there is care somewhere in there. But there is fear and contempt sitting at the forefront. I think that you could maybe spend one more night here. Make us even then.
We really did. We may not have been much match for the brushwood, but we did try to get to you. We came across the continent looking for you. That's the entire reason why Roshan and the rest of us are here. We've got additional motives to be here as well, but you were why we are here.
Sorry, does
Should-
anybody else hear that
I don't-
frightening, like,
that-
ghost in the machine?
Oh no!
Yep, it's the
Why?
How spooky.
Oh, my bad.
Oh.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, my bad.
Okay.
My
Is that-
bad.
Am I good?
No more ghosts.
Yay!
Rose stops and looks to the group. I didn't ask to be in this forest.
That wasn't our intention either.
And you watch as she like grips at her chest and her throat. Roshan, as you're watching, go ahead and give me another intelligence check.
Six.
She seems hurt. She seems unwell. Something seems wrong. You don't see anything. You don't know if the hag did something. The forest did something. This forest has done many a thing to many a people. And she looks at you, Roshan. And magic floods to her hand. And that's where we're going to stop for tonight. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. We love telling you guys a story. If you want to see more of that story, you can head over to youtube.com/thedicecult and watch past episodes of On the Backs of Gods and other campaigns and games and what have you. You can follow us and keep up with us at Backs of Gods on Instagram and Twitter. You can keep up with all of us at the Dice Cult on Instagram and Twitter. You can go to the chat or the box below and get some beautiful dice that really didn't make an appearance today. Hey,
Not very
today
much,
was just
but
about us. And
they
that's
have
it.
made some significant decisions recently, so they
Those are the
took a day off
dice.
today.
The dice make choices. And today they didn't have to because you guys did. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. We love telling you guys a story. We will be here same time, same place, Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll see you guys next time. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for joining us, cultists.